Hello and welcome to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. Great to have you with us today. My name's Andrew McKeever, the news director here at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's also a pleasure to welcome to our studio today two folks who have an interesting story to tell. Erica Marthage is a Bennington County State's Attorney and no stranger to our studio, I might add, as many of you know. And we're also joined today by Casey Myers, who is a car enthusiast, as the t-shirt clearly indicates, a Bennington resident, a husband and a father, and a recovering addict. I guess, Erica, help us get started here. How did you meet up with Casey in the first place? Tell us that story.
Well, as the state's attorney in this county, I prosecute all crimes. And when I met Casey Myers, he was young and had a rough streak. So that's how we initially got to know each other. I handled when I was a deputy, actually, I handled all of the younger defendant cases, and he was one of the ones on my caseload.
Okay. So Casey, how did you wind up in the courtroom and meeting?
Well, I was, you know, doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing years ago. You know, underage drinking, stuff like that I shouldn't have been doing. And that just kind of unfolded after that, from that point of my going back to the courtroom and dealing with Erica.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to add that when Casey's story when he was younger was very similar to what you see all the time and expect all the time, and folks just think, oh, you know, that's being a kid, you know, underage drinking and mischief and disorderly conduct kind of stuff, and, you know, really low-level behaviors that you would see in any, you know, 16, 17-year-old, and you wouldn't really raise an eyebrow about it. But then, as sometimes happens, that can develop into more serious issues on a number of levels. And you know, at the time, it's always hard for those of us in the system that meet these kids when they're 16 and 17, because we never really know which ones are the ones that are going to grow out of it and we won't see them again, and which ones are going to run into more problems and struggle a little more.
So how did things go for you then after that first encounter with Erica here? I mean, what happened? Tell us your story.
I got some work crew stuff and all that, but then it came a lifestyle. It came a lifestyle of, you know, what I could get away with, and I didn't care about the cops, and I didn't care about the state's attorney or any of them. Like, I just was gonna do whatever I wanted. And then I started hanging out with the wrong people and making bad choices, and then I got into drugs really bad. I started selling drugs and making a lot of money, and then that lifestyle from there, gained from that point. I just got addicted to the lifestyle, the fast life, and sneaking around, and they're not going to catch me, I'm untouchable type of attitude. And then, you know, I lived that life for a very long time. Then it finally came to a screeching halt. I figured I ran, I took off running. I didn't think Bennington was going to come get me. So I ran to Michigan, and I felt, you know, I'm out here, they're not going to come get me. Well, that was wrong, because Erica and them, they came and got me and brought me back to Vermont. So, you know, that's when reality started kicking in about, then I was, you know, facing some time, and it wasn't a joke anymore. Mm-hmm. I really didn't learn right off at first. I still was doing the same type of lifestyle, and it wasn't until like my third time finally going that I woke up and realized, you know, I got kids, and I can't keep living this life. I started getting in trouble in prison, in which they started taking my contact from me. I lost my contact with my kids. I couldn't get visits. So that's when, like, reality, I end up going to the close custody unit, which is 23-hour lockdown. When you're in that, you know, your options are limited, what you're allowed to do. But so I had a lot of time to think, and that's when I finally was like, you know what, I'm just done. I'm just done with this lifestyle. And then I started planning my life of when I got released of what I would do.
And is that where the car interest?
Well,
began?
now, so I made some goals for myself. When I got out, I said that the first year that I would only stick with the people that were there for me when I was in prison. So I came home, I went back to Michigan. I stayed with my wife, she's best friend. She's my biggest support, my wife is. So I stayed with my wife, my kids, my grandparents, every day for the first year. I wouldn't associate with other people. I wasn't on Facebook, nothing like that. I just kind of tried to find myself. And then slowly after that year, I started reaching out to people, and I just had to stay with positive people. I couldn't go back to the same people that I was hanging with. Not blaming them for my choices, but I just made bad choices around certain people. So then it came a point where my wife, her family's out here. So she started missing her family a lot, and I didn't think it was fair that I had her all the way out in Michigan and she couldn't see any of her family. So we decided to move back, but we didn't decide that until I felt that I was ready to come back here. So I came back here, and seeing the drug epidemic was huge, a lot worse than it was when I was originally started with this. And I just get sick of seeing my friends and people I knew just either ODing or just, living a bad life. And then finally I went to Paulins in Shasberry one day with my son, and I seen Erica there. And now I haven't seen her in years. Meanwhile, the last time I seen her,
since you crossed paths at the
yeah.
courthouse.
So the last time I seen her, we're in the courtroom. So
Right.
last time I seen her, so I kind of like walking around because I wanted to say something to her, but like I was so afraid of what her reaction was going to be. And so finally, I think she actually said something first to me. She's like, "Do I know you or something?" So that's how
familiar to me.
that's how the whole conversation started. And then I started explaining it to her about how long I've been clean and what I've been doing. And I told her about the car show that I wanted to do, and she was fantastic support. She, on such short notice, she was like, boom, she got a big bouncy house for the kids. I mean, she reached out to so many different people and made it huge, bigger than I even expected it to be.
So this was the car show at the Grace Christian School in Bennington last August. I know there's a story written about it in the banner, and some of our viewers may remember that. You were showing off cars and rebuilt cars, and a whole big event for kids and families.
That's what I got passionate about, because I think that if they find things that they're passionate about, it will help them overcome drug addiction. Because when people are on drugs, and I know each case is different, but there's something that's missing. Somebody's missing something, they're lonely about something, something's going on that made them do that. It's not, they didn't wake up one day and just say, hey, I'm gonna go use drugs. Something dramatic happened to them. So I feel that if you find something that you're passionate about, like a security blanket for a baby, same thing. If you find something that you're passionate about, that will help you drive to live a better life, to help you get away from the life that you're living with drugs. People say that, oh, I can never do it, or, they hear that a lot from people. You're never going to change, and that's one of the biggest things you don't ever want to hear as an addict, is somebody downgrading you. But if you believe in yourself, you could do anything. And I'm a perfect example of that. I mean, I never thought ever in a million years that I would be associated with Erica, that we would talk or email each other, even at anything at that level. But like, if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. You just put your mind to it.
So does this sort of relationship happen often, Erica, or is this a real exception?
Well, no, I mean, kind of the stars aligned for this one. Casey was always someone that, I've been in Bennington doing this a long time, so, I'm on my 20th year of being a prosecutor in Bennington, and so there have always been situations where I meet people, whether it be as a defendant or a victim or a witness or whatever, and I encounter them somehow through the court system, and I think about them, and there's something about either the situation or just, when he was a little, like, pretty young, I call him a little kid, but he was pretty young, he was a kid, and something about kind of the the issues that he was getting into and the trouble he was having at that time, there were half a dozen young men in the same situation that I also kind of always kept their name in my mind. And so when he started to go down the really serious path with selling drugs and using hard drugs, and that, you know, I've told him that, it breaks my heart when you see the one of the ones that I kind of was keeping an eye on and had a special interest in watching them develop and overcome, and it's like, and then when you see them going down the wrong path, it's always a little harder. When Casey ended up in Michigan, I remember getting the phone call that we located him. He's at his grandparents in Michigan, and do you want to extradite him back to Vermont? And my feeling on extradition is always, if it's someone who's not coming back to Vermont anyway, they don't have ties here, they're not a Vermont kid, they're not somebody who has roots here and who really I feel like is our responsibility, then I'm not looking to bring criminals back to Vermont. But Casey's clearly a Vermont person. Like, he is from here, he's our responsibility, and whatever part it is we had in his outcomes, we needed to bring him back. Part of it also is I knew at some point he would be back because he did have family connections here, and I'd rather have him come back under my supervision than on his own. And so that was, I remember having the discussion in my office about whether we were going to bring him back, and I'm glad we did. And that day in Paulins, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I was looking at him thinking he looks like he wants to say something to me, and he had his son with him, and he looked familiar, but I couldn't place him, and so I just asked him, did you want to talk to me? And he said, you don't remember me. I said, say your name. And as soon as he said his name, I was like, oh my God, you look fabulous. Like, you're clearly clean. We were talking about it on the way down here, kind of the beauty of being and having different connections in your past. He can tell when someone's BSing him about being clean, and I can tell when someone's clean just by how they look. So,
because people are like, oh, I've been clean for months and months, and it's like, who are you lying to?
Right.
I could see right through it. And the thing is, I wish they would be honest with me, because I'd rather want to help them, than, I'm not going to go telling them, not like that. I'd rather have someone come to me and say, listen, I really need help. Can you help me? And that's what Bennington Import Group pretty much is all about, is that people in the group, whatever we can do to help each other. And it may not just be with a drug addiction. It could be, I really want to go to school, or I want to do this. So what can this team do together to help you, drive you to get there, or what can I do to help you? Anything I can do to help you. And like I tell everyone on my team is that, I'm one phone call away. I don't care if it's 1 o'clock or 5 in the morning. If anybody needs anything, please, you call me, because I know that feeling of that first phone call that somebody makes to reach out to somebody, that is going to determine their next move. If somebody reaches out to somebody because they have a bad drug addiction and they get turned down, because they're always going to go to a loved one. And it happened to me. I went to someone in my family. I called him. I knew that he was going to be upset, but I called him and I tried to reach out to him, and he, it wasn't the phone call that I thought it was going to go, so I got rejected. So the first thing I did was, well, you know what, you don't want to believe, you don't want to help me, then I feel like I'm going to keep doing it then, But now, though, what people really need to understand is that once you have come clean, the high of life that you get now is just unbelievable. Like, I walk down the street, I don't have to look over my shoulder. When I see Bennington police, I wave to them and they wave back to me. I don't have to wait like, oh, there's the police, worry about running anymore. Like, and just associating with people and the way that they respect you when you get clean, that's the best high in the world that you could, that's the best high I've ever been dealing with. It's like, I talk to these people now, like they actually speak to me now, like, nothing it gets better than that.
And you know, just on the, it's the very first, because the question first in my mind was, when I saw him in Paulins that day was, what happened? What worked? Because of course, that's the question on everybody's lips, right? I know his story. I know what he was struggling with. I know he ended up incarcerated. So what worked? What changed your mind? What helped? And
so my biggest thing, and I say this all the time, is that believing in yourself is that has to be your #1 goal and key. Is you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself and you don't start loving yourself, you're not going to be able to do anything or love anybody else. So what I did is I said, I'm just going to make it about me and becoming a better father, a better husband, a friend that a friend would want to have. I got sick of people, you know, I just started thinking all the things that people were talking down to me or putting me down and not wanting me around because of the lifestyle I lived. So I just turned all that around and just saw positive things. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start going on my way helping somebody, really put my mind to something. And then you just start to adapt to doing that. You know, it's like thinking for change. You take a negative thought with a positive thought, and eventually you just adapt doing that it comes natural. Like now, you know, I don't even think about drugs now. It don't even cross my mind now, because I've came to a point where it's so naturally, it's like, I already know what the repercussions will be if I go back to that life. Every morning my daughter runs into my room and wakes me up, and just seeing her smile and my son smile every morning that they see me, you know, I don't ever want to leave that. I don't want to ever hurt them anymore, because for a long time I used to blame everybody else. It was Erica's fault why I went to jail. It was this one. You know, it's not their fault, it's your own fault. You did it yourself.
So did you go through treatment? Or?
I did treatment. I think treatment is wonderful, and I think that everyone should do some form of treatment, of counseling. To me, AA and NA and stuff like that wasn't really for me. I can't really talk about things about my past, because to me it's like gloating about it to me. So that's hard for me. It may work for other people, but definitely counseling, programming. I did very intensive programming. You know, thinking for change, habits of mind, risk factors, core belief, relationships, substance abuse, anger management. You know, the list goes on. And then when I got out, I continued to do counseling. I did like a 12-week program, and then eventually turned it to once a month. I still today go see a counselor once a month. You know, not like I used to, but once a month. Or if I'm having a bad day, I'll call my counselor up and talk to him about it. And I think everyone should always have somebody that could be a go-to person.
Because it's one of the things that's, as I've kind of tried to follow what goes on with all of this, is that it's remarkable how many people relapse after they come to a point where they feel like they've hit a bottom and things just can't get worse, and then they say to themselves, kind of just what you were just saying, I can't go on like this any longer, you know, I got to change. And that works for a little while, maybe a couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe even longer. And then something happens again, and you go right back into the old way. Right back to
it again. So sometimes it's like going up a mountain, like you are getting high off of all your success you're going, and then you reach a peak point, and then it flatlines. Like, what do you do from this point once you've already reached all this? So what I do is I just keep setting goals and just keep setting, saying, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, and this year I'm going to do 15 things. I said, me and my wife just sat down the other day, you know, she's like, what do you want to do for the next year? What are our goals to own or buy? We just went out and bought a brand new car last weekend. That was one of the goals I wanted to do. So you got to stay on top of the behavior and what you learn from treatment. Like you gotta come adapt. Like you gotta set goals. You know, people do that on a daily basis anyways. It's just basically living a normal life. You just set your mind to something, and the key word of believing in yourself again, and you can do anything, and it'll never stop.
So does the process get easier over time? I mean,
over time.
You've been clean for a long time now.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, it's no longer a case, and you just mentioned that I don't think about this stuff any longer, but I mean, I imagine there still must be days when triggers happen and you kind of go, oh man.
There's times where I get frustrated. You know, money's always going to be a frustration issue. But over time, like, it gets easier and easier and easier, and like, you learn to do some thought shifting, and then it just comes naturally. You know, but anytime that I feel that I'm down and upset about something, I recognize the risk before it happens. Mm-hmm. And I would go to my support team. You always have a support team. So, you know, my wife, obviously first, and then, you know, maybe I'd reach out to Erica or, you know, somebody like that and say, hey, I'm going through a hard time right now. This is very frustrating. I know what could potentially happen, so I'm trying to stop it before it happens. So you always have a game plan there in case of that happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's the hard piece that we have been looking at in Bennington, the opiate leadership group that formed with the hospital and my office and UCF, some of the other organizations that deal with addiction, where how do you can have treatment programs, residential counseling, what Casey's describing, that piece of it, the support, the people that you can go to, he has been able to make the lifestyle change. And I think it's hard to see the folks that, and Casey sees them too, where they do get clean and they're doing well for a little while, but then they're right back with, you know, the people that Casey was talking about, that you just know you make poor decisions when you're with that person, and it's difficult in such a small community, in such a rural area. You know, I've watched Casey over the last 9 months have people that want to stay connected to him, and that we've talked about this. What do you do with the people that you don't wish them bad, you want to help them if they need help, but you can't be dragged down into their lifestyle or their drama. And that's a difficult line to walk. And so it's been interesting watching him go through it, because it's something that I think, a lot of folks that are dealing with addiction have to deal with. What do I do with all these people that were my best buds?
So we actually just had this conversation coming up here. So I have a very good friend of mine, Joseph Baker, and I, very good friends for the longest time. But we know that us two together is not good. So when we see each other, he knows that I know. We don't say that, but like, we're like, oh, hey, what's going on? How you been? Like, we talk for maybe 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, hey, I gotta make up something. Oh, I gotta go. I gotta get the kids. I gotta do this, because we both naturally know that we are good friends, but we make poor, bad decisions together. So our best bet is to stay away from people. You don't have to completely. There's people. I talk to people that still use, that still sell drugs, that still live that lifestyle. But I choose not to hang out with them. If I see them, I'm not going to be rude and just say, I don't want to talk to you anymore, I'm better than you. But it's like, hey, how you doing? See you later. It's good seeing you. I got to go to work. You come up with some excuse why you can't sit and hang out all day, because that can open a door potentially. So that's what I do now. I had to separate yourself, even from family members. My mother, I love my mother to death, but she's never gonna change. My mother's in prison right now. I've reached out to Erica about this. My mother, she's into selling drugs and using, and she's over 50 years old now. And I hate saying that her life is over, but it is. She's built this life of crime and using, and she's no one's gonna tell her anything. I have to separate myself from her. I still answer her call when she calls me sometimes. I do put money on her account sometimes to help her. But as far as jeopardizing anything that I have done, like Erica just said, I can't allow that to happen. I can't have her bring me back down, or anybody bring me back down. And that's with anybody.
Erica, I'm wondering, this is such a fascinating story. What conclusions did you draw, or sort of ideas did you draw from this when it comes to, like, when you're doing your job as state's attorney and you're dealing with people who are involved in the drug scene, the drug community in the area? Is it your thought, okay, we've really got to drop the hammer on these people, and they really need a wake-up call, or is there something about them that suggests to you, well, maybe a softer, kinder approach is the better way to go? I mean, is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, I didn't drop the hammer on Casey, because I did. He did a lot of time in jail, and it was, you know, it's not fun. You know, I mean, it's not fun for me to have to send people to jail, particularly when, you know, he had young kids. He had one child that was due to be born like relatively soon after he was arrested, and it was. But that's why I wanted to hear from his perspective. It wasn't going to jail that was really what kind of helped him look at his own situation. You know, from what I can gather from what he has told me is that it was, look, you can get drugs in jail. You can be with people that are all bad influences. That's not it. It was the other things in his life, his visitation and having contact with his kids and his wife and the people that he did have for support, and just thinking, you know, about himself and being able to spend some time thinking about himself was key. And so but it's hard for me when I'm just looking at a piece of paper to know. I mean, like I said, there were a number of young men in the system around the same time as Casey, and a lot of them got similar sentences, but did not have similar outcomes to what Casey did. So I feel like it's an asset to me to be able to have conversations with Casey about how, I mean, that's why I thought the car club idea was great. And, you know, and CRJ, the Center for Restorative Justice, was fabulous till we connected with them. Yeah. And Kim Phillips there was right on top of this. Is a great idea. Let's try to help people forge these community responses. You know, I spend a lot of time in Montpelier hearing about how we need certain situations, we need drug court, we need treatment, whatever, we need treatment programs and residential programs, but we need to look at other alternatives, and they may be different in every county. And in this county, we're lucky enough to have someone who, you know, wants to give back to the community and share his experience and give back to the community by fixing cars. So his group is also fixing cars for people in need. If they can't afford to pay for a mechanic, this group, they meet and they have rules and they have homework.
There's rules. Oh yeah, there's rules and stuff you have to go by, and homework. And if if you come to group high or something like that, then you will be suspended from group. And it's, you know, holding each other accountable for your actions. You know, we're in the process of building a car that we're going to try to race next year as a team at Import Showdown, which I think is a great idea because I raced my cars at the track, and, you know, nothing's better than driving at 120 miles an hour down the track. So,
and I believe you.
Feeling these guys are proud of something that they built. You know, they're proud of, they were part of something, and then when they see it drive around Bennington, they're like, oh, I built that car, I helped build that car. That, you know, that's something. Just being proud of something you did has changed a lot. The other thing I think the other thing people are scared of is what people are going to think about them. So for the longest time,
the stigma piece, I guess.
Yeah, like I was so worried, like even, you know, it sometimes question in the back of my mind, like, you know, people see me talking to Erica, you know, or talking to the police, like they're going to judge me, they're going to think I'm telling on people, they're going to think this. But in all reality, I don't do anything in my life to tell on somebody or to even worry about that. And that's what people need to understand too, is they need to stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. You need to just worry about yourself and take care of yourself, because, you know, and believe it or not, nothing has changed with the people I associate with, and they all know that I speak with Erica. Right. They know that.
It came up a little in this last year, just because it was also public, the election, and names out there. And so I know there are a handful of people that I have prosecuted that now I'm friendly with, or that thank me for where they've ended up, and
I thank Erica for this, because
they have to defend me, and I feel badly for that. But it's really, like, to me, it's just as important. Like, I invited Casey to my swearing in, and when he got there, they wanted, you know, one of the deputy sheriffs wanted to know why he was there, and he said, "Well, Erica invited me."
I'm like, Erica invited me, and just when I got that email, it was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, this is amazing that I'm invited to something like this. So I ran right over there. And, you know, he's just like, what are you doing here? And, I mean, he knew me because I worked
in the wrong
there.
door.
But he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, Erica just invited me over here. And he's like, oh, okay. And I went upstairs, and just seeing, you know, people like that there, that's huge, you know. That's something to be proud of.
So the big takeaway is it can be done.
Oh, it can be. You believe in yourself.
You can be trapped inside that syndrome, and you can break out of it.
It can happen.
It can be done. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's an amazing achievement and a great story, and hopefully one that we'll hear a lot more about as the time goes by, since it seems to be such a big problem around the area, but the state and the country as a whole, actually, for that matter. Well, thank you all for being with us also. I hope you found the discussion interesting and informative, and thanks also to our guests today, Erica Marthage and Casey Myers. Great to have had you with us today, and we'll see you again the next time.